it was a very like coming of age moment, was when we lost the childhood house. I made something to the tune of like 350 videos for Drum Track, just grinding. Every week you make like a bunch of these videos, and you go from them being pretty rubbish to them getting not half bad. This is the weirdest thing. I've never met anyone useful on LinkedIn, but I've probably shot at them in a video game.
Growing up in the small working class town of Yeovil in Somerset, Ryan saw his family lose their home and much of their livelihood after the 2008 financial crash. His parents rebuilt their lives in hands-on roles, a plumber and care worker, but always backed Ryan to follow whatever path made him happy. Drawn more to creativity than the classroom, Ryan followed his passion for music, inspired by his dad's playing in a classic rock band, to study music technology in London. A university placement became his first step into teaching, while outside of work, he built up experience in live streaming and video production for gaming and esports events, eventually finding his place in game development. His journey has taken him through music, videography, games development, and leadership. And now, as a lecturer, he mentors students from similar backgrounds, offering the kind of support he once needed himself. Hey, you're right, Ryan. How you doing? How was that?
Hey, Dance. Thank you so much for inviting me. We were just saying in the pre-show that when you first started pondering over this kind of subject, we had a conversation quite early on, right?
Yes.
And I've been excited for this ever since. I think this is a really good thing you're doing, and I'm really happy to be
Yeah,
here.
it was over a year ago, so.
Yeah, exactly. I've been watching, and I love what everyone's had to say. Like everyone's come up from such a unique, background, unique opinions on these kind of subjects, and I've learned so much from it as well. So yeah.
No, it's good. I'm looking forward to finding out more about yourself and your feelings about all of this. So yeah, before we get into what is it that you currently do?
Okay, so you've given me a really nice introduction in terms of how we've got here, but what is here, I'd say, where I've arrived is that I'm mostly teaching. So I'm a lecturer at University of West London. I teach within the area of kind of games and esports, so game development. And then esports it's related, but it's not the same thing. It's the study of games media. It's the study of competition. It's kind of this big contextual ball around games that doesn't necessarily mean game development. So I'm kind of like a full stack, full scope games academic now, which is a wonderful place to be in. Not a place I think I ever thought I would be necessarily, but I guess we'll kind of get into that as we go through. Outside of that, I'm also a director and a developer in an actual games company in the UK, and not so much nowadays. But I've also been a occasional freelancer doing things within games media.
Yeah, Based on the intro, it seems like you've done quite a lot, and it's quite a varied career and experience that you've had. So with this series, it is focusing on working class and those from low socioeconomic backgrounds. And one of the first questions I always ask is, what does working class mean to you? How would you define it?
I'll try to define it better than Keir Starmer tried to, because that was quite a funny video clip, wasn't it? It's a really tricky one, and this is one of the things I'm getting a lot from real videos, because I do feel like everyone has a bit of a unique outlook on it. So here's my hat in the ring. It is about money. It is about finance, but that's only kind of one small aspect of it. For me, it's kind of summarizing early life conditions. It's kind of how much room you can fall, how many opportunities you can take, what information is available, what like social connections do you have, what is near you growing up. What is the kind of knowledge you can pick up from going to like a great library or a great museum or something which isn't, out of the norm. Like, what are the opportunities for your school? What are the opportunities for your friends? It's kind of this really big social geography, economic ball, which is why it's so hard to kind of break down. and I've got this really cringy analogy.
Yeah, go for it. No,
which is from a games background. I kind of, and this is definitely my bias, but for me, it feels like you're playing this game on like normal difficulty with no help, no hints, no tips, nothing, like no tutorials, and no new game plus, which is what I think that there's this subject within games of like new game plus. You've already completed it once, and now you're completing it again. That's kind of what it's lacking. You're lacking that previous experience maybe from your parents or from your wider family, and the ability to maybe you've already learned these lessons. Now that's not to say that coming from working class background you can't still win the game, but you're going to lose some lives. That's not the way. Like it might take longer, it might be a bit more of an uphill battle. It's not going to necessarily limit you, but it's not necessarily giving you the benefits.
Yeah,
that's my cringy.
I think enjoyed it. Hopefully people that watch this will kind of understand where you're coming from, because as I was saying to you before on this show now, is like, since doing this series, like working class is so much complex than it's such a difficult thing to define, and that's why I ask each guest, it's like, how do you define it, because it is based on that individual's lived experience and how it is. In the intro, I talked about you growing up in Yeovil, and would you say that's like a very working class town? And how was it for your family after that, the financial crash? How did that affect?
This is it turns out hugely important, and I didn't necessarily realize it so much until I started kind of digging it into myself. So I said to you just before, I did actually talk to my parents about this today. I sat down and had a conversation with them. I called them both because they're both in different places at the moment, and asked kind of about their opinion, because I kind of began generating this hypothesis that maybe it's different. Like maybe this feeling of working classness is different between this rural place. Like this is what Yeovil is, for those who've not been there before. It's about an hour to an hour and a half away from the nearest city. Yeovil's byline, it's not byline, whatever comes underneath the name, heart of a town, mind of a city, right? That's what it is. It builds itself up to be this kind of city, but it's just not. It doesn't have any of the framework. All it's got essentially is like one main employer, which is Weston's, the helicopter factory. And outside of that, it's very, very limited. I think that what makes it different is the fact that also alongside that, things aren't as expensive. When you're in deepest, like rural Somerset, house prices actually aren't that high. Living costs are lower. There is a life to be had there, even without earning very much at all, even without having no family or generational wealth or anything. And this is the thing that maybe I'm kind of uncovering is actually quite a big difference, maybe in terms of the lived experience of two people who come from this working class background, because it's the same. My family, they come from a line of people who work with their hands, plumbers, electricians, like both sides of my family as well. So we're talking both my dad and my mum's side. Both have a lot of people who work with their hands. On my dad's side, his dad was a plumber. He actually came from London. Funnily enough. He came. He was brought down as a child during World War II. He moved to Somerset. That's why he came. So funnily enough, I actually do have a little bit of London. But this is a bunch of people who work with their hands: plumbers, builders, electricians. And then my mum's side is farmers. My grandfather was now quite famous, infamous cider farmer. It's a very, I don't know. It's definitely fully working class, but at the same time, these people can buy a house. They can access quite a nice standard of living. Like we're talking about a house in the garden. We're talking about that, not extraordinary prices. So this is definitely what makes Somerset a little bit interesting in this conversation. Now, you asked me about what happened, because I'm talking about houses. What happened during 2008? 2008. So, I mean, I could take a small step backwards in terms of like my experience growing up was generally very pleasant, right? Like we had this one house. I grew up in this one house. I didn't necessarily go to school near that house. My parents fought very hard to get me to a school. They had a little bit of extra money to pay for me to get. It's not like a private school or anything. It's just I was out of the catchment area. They have paid a bit of money to the bus company or something. I traveled about 45 minutes on the bus to get to school. This is the kind of place that if you miss a public bus, I mean, where I used to live, it was an outlet. And there's only 6 running a day. If you miss a bus where my parents currently live, it's a week.
Okay.
The bus comes once a week.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, it's wild. But it was a lovely place. But unfortunately, my mum was leading at that point a building company. My dad was running his own self-employed plumbing company. And then 2008 happened, and that was directly related to property. It was directly related to building. And their mortgage at the time, as I've learned, was something they didn't necessarily understand. It was a pension mortgage, so a little bit complicated. But they weren't paying towards the actual cost of the mortgage property. They were paying the interest and then paying into a pension pot. That was then on the basis that things would just keep rising, right? Things can only get better. And that didn't happen.
Okay.
And the mixture of that, that financial advice that they'd received not quite working out the way it should have, and the industry that they both worked in completely collapsing, meant that about the age of 18 was when I left. Funnily enough, it was a very coming of age moment. Was when we lost the childcare house and they moved to it's like an ex-council house, and I had a conversation with my parents today, as I say, and we were saying that you don't have as many big landlords in Somerset. Well, you actually have is housing associations, and it's one of those. It's one of these housing association places, and that's where they ended up. And young me, I was going to London to make music. I was music technology. God, I made some money from music. But I think that kind of summarizes those early days anyway. We can touch more into what makes Somerset as we go on.
Yeah, so no, it's quite interesting because you talk about there is the difference between, I suppose it's the locations because you wanted to go more the creative route. And for those kind of roles, you had to move to London. And I suppose, like you said, there were jobs in Somerset. And but for the roles that you really wanted to go, you had to move away. And I suppose location is quite key to this. And
we can sit here for a moment, actually, because that was another thing that I ended up thinking about and talking about, which was that you do have certain types of jobs in Somerset, and I do think that there is a real entrepreneurial spirit, not necessarily to be rich, but to have the freedom. Because if the choice is between working in a factory or having the freedom to work with your hands and make things, and there's a real community. You have workers' pubs. You have people who know each other very well, who work in this small town. I mean, I think the entire population of Yeovil was something like 25,000 people. Everyone knows everyone in this space, and there's this real entrepreneurial spirit. And both my parents had that to an extent, and I think maybe that's helped me. Even if things didn't go so well, that's really helped me wanting to do what I wanted to do. And as you said in the intro, they always told me to do what I wanted to do. London was, it wasn't the only place I applied to. I'll admit I didn't get into Liverpool. I applied for Liverpool. I did a rubbish interview because I wasn't very good. It wasn't my only choice, but it just happens that the university I currently work at is the one that I was accepted at. And so were 3 of my friends, so it made the move a little bit easier. And for those who know the geography, if you happen to know this particular route, there's essentially 2 roads, but one road essentially from where University of West London is to where my parents are, and that's this really metaphorical road, the M4 to the A303. I don't have to turn from where my house is to where my parents' house are. I just have to drive in a straight line for 3 hours and 15 minutes. And there's something very metaphorical about that one road.
How was that for your parents? Because obviously they would have been working and living in one area all their life, and then you're kind of up sticks and moving away from home, and especially going into a creative industry where it is notoriously quite hard to get into and it's competitive. And how was that for you? Did you find it was quite difficult, especially coming from Yeovil, this small town?
So I'll pin what you just said very interestingly about how difficult it is to get into the industry, I think, for when we start talking academically. Because you're absolutely right about that. Was it hard? But it's also I've got a bit of a strong belief that I was incredibly blessed. to be able to do it in the way that I did it, because I was one of the last years of the cheaper, the cheaper student line, which is an incredibly privileged position. And I'm ridiculously lucky that I was able to do that, because don't get me wrong, I didn't pay off anything towards that loan for years because I wasn't earning any money because I was in the creative field. But but it meant that I could do it with the backing of some government money. Like I was given the top grant, and I could live relatively comfortably without having to work constantly. I worked during summers and things like that. Whenever I had little jobs, I worked with my dad a lot. I was doing a lot of plumbing. But no, it was actually a huge opportunity. It was a chance for me to explore creative loads, a chance for me to explore myself. And I definitely think for a young man, where we're a little bit immature when we're 18, we kind of need the freedom to go out and make some mistakes and do it away from our parents in a way. In terms of how they felt, my mum still hasn't necessarily come to terms with the fact that I don't live anywhere near them. My brother's actually even further away.
Okay.
They still, especially my mum, really struggles with it. They wish we were closer. But they are incredibly proud. And as I say, that feeling, that freedom, that complete lack of judgment, and that ultimate support from them is overflowing. And that's where ultimately the working classness didn't impact. It was a direct benefit. They didn't expect me to go out and earn any money. They didn't expect me to continue the family legacy, whatever that means. They just said, it doesn't matter whether or not you want to stack shelves or become an astronaut. They weren't necessarily be able to help me get there, because I was the first one. I guess this must be a common theme.
It's the first one in the family.
You're the first one to go to university. Yeah, exactly. They weren't necessarily able to give me the lessons on how to get there, but they never hindered it.
No, it's good. So I suppose that's the thing as parents, isn't it? It's like they want the best for their children, so they're not gonna stop them. And the fact that you managed to get this place on the course within London, so because the creative industry is hard and it is notorious for individuals to get in. How did you manage to break in? What route did you manage to take?
I'll do the short story time just because you've kind of already introduced it. But I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a lecturer that I actually think still works at the university, who runs a module called Music Education Workshop, which was a module on the degree that I was on. And it put you in a placement in a local school. And this school wasn't the best. It's not the worst, but it wasn't the best. But 4 of us were in a team, and we all went there and we were presented there, and then all of us were offered an interview, and I won that one interview. And of those 4 people, the only one who ended up staying was the person who had a little bit of stability. And I'm not saying this was a good job; it was a rubbish job, quite frankly. It was rubbish. It actually made me hate teaching, and so did some of the following jobs as well. It made me absolutely hate it. And you worked rubbish long hours because it's like secondary school teaching, and I wasn't a qualified teacher, and I had no interest in becoming one. So it's rubbish pain, rubbish work. But again, it was the freedom and the security to do that while I did what I really wanted to do, which was take basically use I could have part-time. I was banking hours. I would come in and work 2 weeks straight and then bank a bunch of time, and then during that time I was volunteering in games and esports. So I started attending and volunteering basically for video game tournaments. So and there's actually another university module, which was a videography module, and I got really into cameras and I really enjoyed that. I started going with my crappy DSLR, like a £200 DSLR, and I'll go to all these different events and cut all of these different videos. And I look back now, they're really rubbish videos. And I was also doing this for a local drama shop in Clapham. Shout out Drum Track. We're making all these different videos, and I made something to the tune of like 350 videos for Drum Track. Just grinding. Every week you make like a bunch of these videos, and you go from them being pretty rubbish to them getting not half bad over time. Again, earning not great money, but the voluntary experiences, doing things like Insomnia, which is a LAN tournament. It's like a competitive video game tournament in Birmingham. Doing things like that, and then eventually this became bigger offers. So I would get paid, not much, very often just my flights, to attend things like DreamHack, which is in Sweden, Jönköping in Sweden. And then I got picked up to do a documentary about a game that I really liked and I played a lot of, and I did that. And then I got invited to do Tip of the Hats, which is a major charity event for the game that I did. Again, not paid, just flights and hotel. Right, so I had to take the time off. You know, any money that you lost. And in fact, one of the things, talking about working classness as a problem, the fact that I was making no money, I didn't have any security, I didn't have any much savings. A lot of the time when you're working for these voluntary events, you have to pay the cost up front, and then you get the payment back later. I was flying to America. Like I was flying to, we did LA twice and Chicago twice.
So how were you financing that then? Or if you had to wait for the payment?
I don't spend a lot of money. I think this might be part of my background, and my partner, it drives my partner wild.
Quite frugal.
But I don't spend a lot of money. I really don't. I'm incredibly frugal. Like I've never had before very, very recently. I've never really earned very much at all. Ultimately by choice, because I was doing what I wanted this entire time. So that's ultimately how I was financing it. You know, I've managed to avoid anything like debt most of my life, but I think it's because I'm terrified of debt. Again, I think it's
well, I suppose that it probably goes back to the whole financial crash thing. You saw it firsthand. How you can just complete back to
no, it's terrifying. Again. I think when you are worried about just affording stuff, and then you see that happen firsthand, and you know, it's when you live somewhere like that, and it's your friends, it's your family, it's your brothers, it's your cousins, and they get hit by this stuff, and it makes you not. Even hearing about the concept of good debt. I mean, I'm older now. I'm like 30 plus, and I still don't really like it. I still hate the idea of a credit score. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not something like that.
A lot of this volunteering work that you did, do you think that kind of harks back to that working class mentality where, okay, I'm doing this anyway because it might give me some opportunities? Do you feel like that's because you often hear about people having these connections already there, so they're kind of sorted, they'll walk into a job. But especially, it's probably not so much now, but back in the day, like for me, I was probably doing the same thing as you, where you would be working these free jobs, these expenses paid work, just purely because you're building up your experience, and you're just getting more connection. Do you feel like, as someone from working class, that's kind of the thing that working class individuals end up falling into, that kind of trap where, oh, this might be an opportunity for me?
Yeah, easily could be. Yeah, easily could be, couldn't it? I think for me personally, the reason that I kind of had this daisy chain of events like this, that included making my own charity event, which got bigger, and pretty much everything we were doing. The reason that you did the voluntary stuff is because very few other people do it. You end up in, same as when you do entrepreneurial stuff, you actually end up in a situation where you're quite senior very quickly, which gives you that additional burden. You always have to rise to that burden, and it always feels like it's building for something. Is that because of the background? I mean, I think it was because of the complete lack of vision on my half. I had absolutely no idea where it was going. There was no mentorship. There was no vision. There was no idea of this will work. I had one bit of advice once, and it was great advice, but I did not take it.
What was the advice?
Because the advice was, at the time, I started making videos, and I was making videos in the form of like watch this and tell mahogany sessions, doing like people doing acoustic music and putting it on YouTube. And then that was like in the early days, like 2013 or something like that. And I started doing a couple of these videos. They're still online today. And one of my old college teachers basically said, like, what you're doing there is a good thing. Maybe you should keep doing that. I didn't do it, but I ended up doing stuff that's similar. And he wouldn't have understood much about the game world anyway. So it kind of ended up doing the same thing. But I will say, definitely my experience, same as some of your other speakers, my experience in university, no one really gets the time of it. And I have a lot of respect for my tutors and lecturers that were in university, but our course size was huge at the time. Absolutely huge. It's completely unmanageable in terms of actually having a personal relationship with your lecturer. And therefore, as I say, of all the people I know who did the course, the amount of people who are doing sound now, is basically zero.
Yeah.
Because there just wasn't any idea of what happens after this. So that's why there's a bit of a weird unbroken line, and I call it like the missing 5 years in terms of my break into industry, in terms of how I got here. There was this missing 5 years where all I did was have my head down, working a job I didn't particularly like, and just volunteering and seeing what's done, and just see what worked without any vision, without any plan. And it just so happened that for when we say breakthrough in industry, that's my cat jumping out onto my roof. When you say break into industry, you need to then start finding what the industry is. And the industry is the games industry. It was actually a very young industry. And this is the most important thing of all about how to break into it. The demographics of what this industry is, I mean, let me quickly get them up so that I can read them out. 61% of people who work in the games industry are under the age of 35. 46% have less than 5 years experience, and 82% have an undergraduate degree. It's incredibly youthful industry. And especially on the teaching side, you know, a lot of people don't know enough to teach, or they do know enough, but they don't want to teach because they're making great games and they're making great products. Breaking into the games teaching industry is still, it's not easy, but it will open up opportunities for those who might be younger, who might be more inexperienced, who might not necessarily be the kind of person who would get into like an English teaching, you know, lecture role, or you know, most of the people who teach these roles are very like tenured academics, and they're like millions of papers to their name. And when I got picked up to do my lecturing role, I still don't have my master's now. I'm still working on it.
So,
you know, and because they give you a chance, because you have that scrappy knowledge, that you've built from the professional background, from the industry background.
So tell us a little bit about your academic side then. So you've come from industry, you've done that side of things, and now you're actually teaching the next generation. Do you see any kind of resemblance in some of the students that you teach? Like, oh, these are like how I was, or actually it's a lot harder for these individuals?
There's a single unbroken line in between my experiences sneaking out of science when I was in like year 6 to go hang out in the music lab, and the kind of people who come to learn how to make games. There's a single unbroken line. It's very similar types of people, incredibly passionate. They don't always know exactly what they want or how they want it, but they know that this passion is what drives them. They come into university and they realize just how much they do not know about how games are made, because at what point was it taught? At what point did we cover that in our entire time that we were in primary, secondary, you know, sixth form, college, or whatever? You would have had very little time to really figure out what even goes into making a video game. And that's the kind of profile we get. We very rarely get people who will figure it out. You do get a range of backgrounds, don't get me wrong, but in our university in particular, you do get a lot of people from working class backgrounds, a lot of people who are living with their parents in London, even the entire 3 years often, and they're not able to like break away. You know, they have to get jobs the entire time, jobs that are nothing to do with games or anything else. Maybe they'll get lucky and work in game in the store. And a lot of them struggle to find jobs afterwards, despite the fact that they're in a wonderful place in the UK. And it's not for any reason other than the fact that it's really hard. It's a really hard industry. You have to know a lot, and some people just take a little bit longer, like I did, to get there, to get that level of drive, to get that level of knowledge. But one thing that we're really firm believers on, that we never, once you leave, you haven't left us. We still have graduates within our circle that we talk to on a semi-regular basis from like 3, 4, 5 years ago, and we've still got their back. You know, we still meet them at Develop Brighton and all these other events, because as I say, it's very very different.
So would you say in that instance, because a lot of the times people always say if you're getting into creative industries, it's a case of it's not what you know, it's who you know. So would you say you're kind of that conduit, you're that connection between industry and these people just graduating?
Yeah, great question. I've got a two-part there,
cool.
actually. So I spoke to you about the game development company that I work in, and you know, I was even working with them today and stuff. And they're also my colleagues at the university as well, the other people I teach with. I met them at uni, and they were my first professional network. They were the first people I met at uni who I didn't go to uni with, really, who were proper friends with. And I've been stuck with them ever since. We're now talking, 12, 13 years, basically. My entire adult life was formed off the back of who I know, who I met at university. And these are people I would not have met if I hadn't gone to university, if I hadn't taken that risk. I've done quite well from the fact that they had more connections than I did, and I'm still not the best at going out and chatting to people and stuff like that. But, they will give me the opportunity to, meet more people. And then as you said, I'm now trying to be the conduit for our students, and the same as my colleagues are as well. We're trying to put them into opportunities where they can meet really impressive people. And that's one thing that we do through the hourly paid lecturers and the professionals that we get in, and through doing things like industry linked, game jams and competitions and events and whatnot, and just trying to make it so these people meet. Even insofar as like saying, we get to the end of an event and everyone's going to the pub, and I'm just like, well, I'm off, but that's where the bar is, and go and meet some people and go and get the LinkedIns and just try to have like some proper adult conversations. Because if they don't know where to go, they don't know where the room is, they don't know where the party is, where these conversations are happening, they'll never have that conversation. And that's all we're trying to do, is trying to open the door and try and point them to the right online communities. We're just trying to point them to the right, even within the university. Like one of my biggest things that I'm trying to do right now is even just trying to join all the different courses. We have a bunch of different games courses that before now weren't really speaking. So we had one network over here and one network over here that they were doing the same thing, but they weren't speaking. And now they've doubled their network. That it could be that these two people will join one of the many incredible opportunities that we'll be talking about fairly shortly, I imagine. But I also owe a lot to professional friends. That's one thing I actually will say. Well, the people that I did meet, the people I've met along the way, I owe a hell of a lot to, because as I said, I've tried to do so many different things, and everything from learning piano to learning After Effects to working in game development. I would have done absolutely none of it was for others.
So that's what I was going to say, actually, with these students that you're telling, like, oh yeah, there's the pub, that's your opportunity to network and mingle with these professionals. Do the students find that it's like, oh, this is like completely alien world to me? How are they finding it like?
It's a 3 it's a 3 or 4 year effort, because you might either go or like miss your first year of networking opportunities because you're young and because you just got to university and because you're not really ready for it yet. The first time you go might be in second year. You go to develop Brighton, you have no idea who to talk to, you basically just go to the beach, and then you don't have any conversations. And then maybe next year, maybe in level 6, maybe in your third year, maybe that's the year you have your first conversation. But the way that these networking things go, they're very often annual, and they're very often based on people that you recognize or they who recognize you. So before you have that first conversation, nothing will happen. You're just going there to
experience it,
examine the pretty beach and probably get attacked by seagulls. But it's after you've had that first conversation. So students find it incredibly difficult, and it's really hard for us to join the lines and to be a conduit for them without it being kind of cringe and like it's your dad trying to introduce you to someone. So that's the line that we walk. And there are some really good opportunities and some really good organizations who luckily are doing that for us.
No, that's good. No, because I work at the same uni, and that there are experiencing the amount of times I keep telling people, like, you'll go into these events, you're meeting these professionals, this is your opportunity. And I feel like, coming back to like working class, growing up, well, me personally, I would never been exposed to these kind of environments where you are meeting these individuals, and then you are finding it slightly harder to speak to these people because it's like, oh shit, this is completely new world to me. So I think
I've got one little thing there, which is I agree with you. I completely agree with you. But there's this thing, it was like a thing on TikTok like a year ago, which was this thing about exposure therapy, about like getting let down. I don't know if you've seen this. It's like a thing. If you've studied and performed the music rubbishly since about the age of 7, you don't really have that so much. There's one thing I don't mind, is making a fool of myself so much. Like, don't get me wrong, I've done the whole anxiety thing. But I will say, like, even when I was younger, we did hang out at the venue, the local venue. There's only one that's closed down. But you go to the local metal night or something, and you would have conversations. You would meet the band that came down from London, or something like that, and you would be reasonably good at it. And I think maybe this is again one of the things that music gave me, because I never give enough credit to music specifically in this hodgepodge of creative subjects. But I do think that's the one thing that music gave me, is the ability to talk to people as if I want nothing from them, which I think is the most disarming thing, because I don't, and to meet them and so that they recognize you enough. And I could be more recognizable, don't get me wrong, I could have like a Mohican or something. But after people recognize you as you step, that's really where that relationship begins to blossom, and where opportunities might open up to you. And you get as good advice as we do, and sometimes it works.
I was going to say, actually, because there's always this conception of people that play games and stuff, they're quite online. Then do they struggle to interact in real life compared to online? Or
that's a really good question. Really good question, because the answer is yes. But at the same time, if it wasn't for the fact that it was online, I wouldn't be here talking to you, right? Because everything I told you earlier about the international nature of where my experience came from, and everything I've done, is because of how you meet online. Like I've met the majority of my most pivotal professional connections in like a Team Fortress 2 server. Like, this is the weirdest thing. I've never met anyone useful on LinkedIn, but I've probably shot at them in a video game. So don't get me wrong, it can be awkward, it can be weird, it can be that there are these characters that they don't necessarily fit like a normal archetype of someone who might be, even that within the game development space. That's a good one as well. Even within the game development space, you'll have like the superstar game developer of this year, and they arrive and it's just a dude. It's just someone, and like barely able to talk, and maybe doesn't even intro his own game, because it's just a computer person. That's a really horrible way to say it. A computer person. No, it's just someone who is very, very comfortable working in that space. And if you're comfortable working in a space, then you'll get great work out of it. It is a sign of the changing times, the fact that you don't actually need to go to these events necessarily. You can just hang out online, and you can go to the forums that cover exactly the same events that you could go to in person, and probably have just as many good opportunities. Because quite frankly, I'm currently flying the flag during this conversation for going to things that I developed Brighton. I hate them. I absolutely hate going to in-person events as much as I don't mind talking to people. It is about the most stressful experience you can have. And I do think if there was an online equivalent, I'd rather go to that.
If someone is coming from like a working class background or a lower socioeconomic household, how easy is it for someone to actually create their own product, game, and kind of kickstart their career from that?
Okay. We'll go for it quickly by subject, right? In terms of access, it is the most common problem, obviously, out of all of these things. Because I can go into you and I can say, Unity is free, Unreal is free. A lot of these tools are free, which is incredible to this day. A lot of these things are free. A computer is not free. Like that's still the big thing, isn't it? This is the thing for esports. This is the thing for game development. A computer is not free, and you can't necessarily use a completely rubbish one. You can get by with a pretty crappy, laptop or something. That's going to be a barrier. Setting up a company is cheap. Having the knowledge on how to do so is expensive, because we have students who go through 2 years of college, 3 years of university, and all of our mentorship and stuff, and they still have no idea how to do that. And we even teach them how to do it. But trying to get someone under a certain age to learn how to make a business sometimes is it's very, very tricky. And I understand it, because I didn't want to do it either. It took me until I was like 25. However, let's remove that barrier. Let's remove both barriers. Let's say you have all of these things, you have everything ready, you have the knowledge. Things then start getting quite interesting. It is difficult to be noticed out there. It's difficult to have a game. It's difficult to have an idea. It's difficult to finish it. Games. I can go into a studio for a week and I can write an album or write and record an album. If I come up with a game idea, we once had a game idea that we thought was going to only take us like 12 months, and I genuinely think we've been working on it since 2020. And we've made like 3 levels. It takes ages. It takes a really, really long time. But again, let's say we scope appropriately. Do you see how very quickly these things, you have to like really get it right. but it still happens. It still happens all the time. There's some absolutely massive games. Phasmophobia was made built from a game from a one-person team. Vampire Survivors is made from a one-person team. Some of the biggest games of the last 10, 15 years have been made by a one-person team who got everything right. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be a millionaire, or gazillionaire, or Brazilianaire, or whatever you want to be. You can actually just make a good amount of money from making just smaller games. And this is the whole mobile circuit. Because, we get stuck in this idea that a game is Skyrim. Most games aren't Skyrim. In fact, 99.9% of all games aren't Skyrim. Something like 60%. I didn't bring the stat with me. Something like 60% of all money made in games from mobile games. And these are much smaller. Much, much smaller. And there's a lot of opportunities for that. And where we make a lot of our money is not making either of these things. We make money games for other people. Because sometimes, these are B2B services and they're really, really popular. And that's what a lot of graduates go on to do. So that's kind of the difficulty in the question. It depends what the industry needs. It depends what your skills are. But there are opportunities. And if you stop wanting to be Todd Howard or Gabe Newell or one of these like superstar game developers, and you just say, I want to work in games and things like esports, things like professional services within games.
There's a lot of different avenues.
Then start becoming an option. And the general games ecosystem is much, much, much bigger than game development. And that's really where the opportunities are.
So actually, I was going to come back to, because you're now working in education and having worked in industry, and the fact you did touch upon having these key connections, because education is compulsory until 18 now. You might be slightly biased in your answer here because you're an academic, but would you still see there is a valid, do you still see like university as a valid system, especially with the price, especially for those from working class who might struggle, and there is no guarantee of a job afterwards?
No. The biggest question, right? And this is the one that definitely you wake up in the morning as a lecturer and you do have to ponder this constantly. I have a graphic, right? And I'm gonna have to explain it to you. But it's a graphic from 2020, and it was from IFS, and I'm pretty sure it was on BBC News at the time, right? And it was talking about how subject choices affect lifetime earnings expected. And if you look at the list, it has everything like medicine, economics, maths, going to education, history. At the bottom is the creative arts, right? The creative arts is the only one where both men and women within this scale had a negative impact. It had a net negative impact on their total lifetime earnings. There's the only subject. And that was in 2020. So that's not even since things like the cost of education going up, and the fact that it could even have to go further if things get worse. Obviously, I don't know, but there could easily be an argument for further increasing education prices in the university. It is a very, very hard sell. However, and this is double bias. I went to university for music. And arguably, music's even harder because games and the wider games industry is as big as music and film combined. So it's an easier sell than that. And I know that's not a very good answer, but that's kind of one of the ones that we have. That ultimately, if you are creative, if this is what you want to do, there should be more things like the ability to work with companies. There should be more government-backed programs to give you more options. There should just be one option. Unfortunately, at the moment, there kind of is. So what do we have to do as lecturers? That we have to make it the most valuable option possible. It is now on us, because we can't make our institution do much more than they're already doing, because they're already cash-strapped. The government is acting incredibly slowly. We'll see what happens. They are doing some stuff. UK Games Fund, more money into that, transfuser, etc., etc. But as academics, we need to try and make it as valuable as possible. And the way that we personally do this is by having this incredibly like media-centric, hype-focused, game jams, competitions, internal speakers, trying to use the fact that we're next to London and making the most of that, and trying to get our students out. And also just giving them the best hands-on support, mentorship, we definitely help more than many other institutions because of the way that we communicate. We communicate constantly with them, even over summer. We're running things like special events, giveaways. We have a bunch of like game keys or something. This is how we try and provide value. And this is what some academics hate about this. They didn't come here to be marketing specialists. They didn't come here to try and provide value. But the student is a customer.
Well,
and we need to do that because they are investing so much, especially those from backgrounds where they cannot afford this. We need to provide them the best experience that we possibly can, or die trying.
Yeah, because it's.
And then maybe this is me overworking.
No.
This is the way I feel.
I think it's completely valid. I think as a lecturer, and I work with the students and stuff. I think it is our responsibility to give them the best opportunities that they're gonna get within our kind of parameter that we can kind of give to them. Like, and this is partly why I'm doing this series as well, because of my background, and I can see how hard it is. And when I see a student paying X amount for their tuition fees, it's like, okay, they're only getting so much at the university, but what kind of value can I give to them?
You know what? Yeah, the money, we know the money is bad. But I tell you what, the interest is so much worse. The interest is so much worse. Like, imagine if it was just the money. If it was just the money, it wouldn't be so bad. But it is the fact that you're paying off for so long because it becomes a graduate tax. And that graduate tax gets worse. We're not even going to have time to talk about this. It gets worse when you go to the master's level. If you need a master's loan, that is an additional percentage on top of what you're already paying on your student loan. That essentially made it so that the reason I didn't get one. It becomes completely unaffordable. You can't permanently give up like 18% of whatever it is on top of your, above a certain threshold to do a master's degree. It's ridiculous. It's completely unaffordable. So therefore, people do a master's degree just those who can afford it.
And then,
absolutely, it's harrowing. But it ultimately is what we have to do. But that's not the only problem. Obviously, there's also problems in the fact that students are coming to us. They're paying all this money. Let's say they clear all these hurdles. We have to do so much catch up, because they've never done anything within games or mostly to do with creative education at all. So that's why Yuki proposing GCSE in digital creativity, very much that they were behind the ability for people to start specializing. The esports BTEC, which had been running for something like 6 years, really, really good thing. And also universities like ours, like others, who are trying to bring in schools who have started picking up onto this trend of the fact that they can use games and use esports either as an educational tool or just as education. And the more that we can do together means that we can provide value even if people don't even come to us, just by raising the general profile of games and making it so that even if students don't come to us specifically, they still come out with a better overall knowledge of what the games ecosystem actually is. And that is so valuable.
It's interesting because I'm reading a book at the minute. It's called Inheritocracy, The Bank of Mum and Dad. And the person writing it, I think her name's Eliza Philby. She's an academic, and in the book, she talks about, like, at open days, because you talked about, the students are customers. And at open days, you're not selling to the student, you're selling to the parents. And
you've got such a good point there, because like this is probably the biggest argument out of this entire thing about what it is.
What value?
So this is almost the full circle moment, isn't it? Where it's like, if you are doing this one life you have, and you don't necessarily have all of the same knowledge and support and finance as someone else, it's not just you taking the battle. It is your parents. It is all caregivers or anyone else, your support network. And they want to know. They want to know that what you're doing is best for you, and they need to be part of the conversation. And this is something that we need to do. And we once did a talk, me and my colleague once did a talk at EGX, where we stood up on a stage for 30 minutes, and we didn't have time for questions or anything. And it was just about, what does games education even mean? And it's even worse for esports. Don't get me started. If you go to a room full of parents and you say, what does esports mean? They have no idea. They have absolutely, and it's not for lack of trying. They're trying to understand it, but it's really, really hard. It's nothing they've even experienced before. And we had like 45 minutes of questions. People came up and lined up next to the stage to ask us questions about this thing, because exactly right. It's about communicating not just with the student, but also with their entire support network. to let them know what the hell are they signing up for. And I don't mean the university, I mean the career.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Like, what does it mean? And yeah, I think that's where mentorship is really important, is actually trying to explain to someone who maybe wants to get into games and they have no idea what that means. This is it. It's really hard in a number of ways. It's also, for a certain type of person, will make you feel like you don't work one day in your life and that you're going to love every day. And I just happen to be in one of those situations where I absolutely love what I do. Like, even in my hardest days, I have a creative life. I love what I do.
That's cool.
But I'd never wish for anything else. And I don't care about the salary sacrifice. I don't care the fact that I'm probably, if you looked at that graph about negative outcome, definitely still, I probably earned less than if I'd just gone back and worked in McDonald's. Nothing against anyone who works in McDonald's, but I probably earned significantly less than if I'd done that. Definitely less than if I'd become a plumber. Don't care. I've loved it. It's been an amazing.
Does that kind of go back to the 2008 financial crash? Would you say the way you look at money is very, very different to if that never happened?
Well, I don't respect money.
No, not that you don't respect it. It's like I kind of have the same thing. It's like before I got this job, I was working advertising and I was on quite good wage, and I took a pay cut to work within academia. I'm not even academic like yourself, a lecturer. I'm like a technician, so my wage will be considerably less. But part of it is, growing up, because there's always I've never been blessed with having lots of money. I always feel like as long as I'm happy and able to get by, I'm okay with that. Would you say you're of that?
It doesn't matter.
Are you the same as that?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. There's only one currency that matters to me, and it's life experience. Ultimately, it can all collapse tomorrow anyway. Like university can stop running courses. It's happened in Bournemouth and Cardiff and all these other places. Like, it can all stop tomorrow. Maybe one day someone's going to come along, some government's going to come along and be just like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we don't like creative education. It can all stop tomorrow. Like, I'm not. It's bad, but it's definitely part of this mentality that I think we're kind of uncovering, where it is a little bit like, I just want to be happy, and I know I can do that if I'm making things. And I think that's the same for my parents. That's the same for my parents' parents. They just wanted to make things, and they just wanted to get by day to day. They never wanted to be rich. They never had any interest in that. Maybe it's because it feels unattainable. Maybe because when you're born, it doesn't even feel like it's a possibility. So, like, what's the point of thinking about it? We just want to live, and we just want to have a good time doing it.
You've moved away from home. You're now working as an academic. Traditionally, that would be kind of classed as a middle class role. Do you feel like you've moved from your working class roots?
So I was having that discussion with my parents about the way that we feel in Somerset about it, and I felt like I was in the middle of the road because my mum had this really interesting point of view where she said a lot of people in Somerset who are working class don't like to feel that they are. Now they are. If you look at the stats, like if you look at everything, you look at the way they make the money, the amount of money they earn, the situation they're in financially, they are. But they have this almost like either pride, which would be like the maybe negative outlook, or they just don't care. Like they're so removed from that world because they're so rural, so far away from these conversations. Up until very recently, my parents' internet was so bad you couldn't even use it. It was no point. And then my dad's side, where actually there is a really strong side there, where it's just like, yeah, I'm a plumber. I work with my hands. My dad was a plumber. Like there's this strong lineage there. And I do feel like I'm somewhere between. Now, my accent has changed quite a lot since I moved away, and that was partly because I was doing singing lessons, and I was singing in American because if you learn how to sing from rock and metal, I was singing in American, and the studio engineer was like, "No, you need to sound a bit more proper. You need to sound like you're English." And I ended up in whatever the hell this accent is, and I'd like it because
it's quite nondescript.
It's unfortunate. There's a Bill Bailey sketch about a international correspondent for the BBC who's from Somerset, right? And it's a joke. That's the punchline, right? Is that he's doing serious international, but it's from Somerset, and he got the stupid accent, and you won't like to do it. unfortunate. Maybe it's because it's like close to me, but I do feel like it's not an accent I really like. It's not really an accent that I like enjoy. It does kind of detract from what you're saying if you have like a deep South accent in comparison to like maybe the Midlands or the Northern accents, where I think some of the most like insurance adverts, these are like Northern accents, Welsh accents, like these are accents which are like nice and approachable. No one really has like a Somerset accent for like, I don't know. I can't tell if I'm being like a little bit sensitive to it.
I completely get what you mean, because I was born in London, but then I moved to Birmingham, and I've got this weird accent of the two. But sometimes I used to think when I was living in Birmingham, it's like, oh, bloody hell, it's like that Birmingham accent. So it's so
But I
distinct.
don't hate it either. And I love the fact those who can wear it with pride. Maybe it's a little bit of envy from my side. I wish I could. And this is maybe a really nice place just to drop. There's actually a video of my grandfather on the internet. He's infamous
Okay.
because someone went to his farm once and he filmed him. He actually filmed him a couple of times.
Yeah.
And this video has like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views. I was once scrolling through TikTok and I saw my grandfather pop up. If you want to go on, I would recommend it. If I'm allowed to make recommendations on this podcast.
What I'll do.
West Country Yap.
What?
Yeah, West Country Yap is the name of the video. And he's in it a couple of times. You listen to that accent, and you may even struggle to comprehend it entirely. You may not even be able to understand a single word he's saying. But at the same time, while I have this like internalized maybe unease with the way that it sounds, I'm so passionate in keeping hold of these accents. And you can't have both. You can't have upstarts like me, I'm going to get rid of my accent, and also like maintain how socially important and culturally important things like accents are. So it's a really hard question. This whole subject of identity and where you come from and stuff, it's about the most complex thing that I've ever pondered, and that's why it's taken me a solid week to think about
it. Like I said, it is very tricky, and having these discussions with each guest that I've had on, it kind of broadens your mind a little bit more. You're like, oh, actually, I can understand why that person would think like that, and it is interesting. Because we're coming towards the end, I was going to say, is there anything in particular that you wanted to highlight that you felt was quite necessary to discuss?
Yeah, we won't dig too much deeper into many of the subjects we've done, but for those who are listening and who maybe, because I think there's a question that maybe I'm jumping ahead of, but in terms of advice that one would give, maybe I'm slightly going backwards as well in terms of the advice. If you are in a position where you're thinking that maybe games or esports might be something you're interested in, we're not actually in a position where we're in a weak economy for games and esports. It's actually a really good economy for games and esports. It doesn't sound like it because there are things like layoffs and whatever. But the way that the stats are looking at the moment, it's actually year on year, the industry is growing in terms of people. And this whole shock and this readjustment, or whatever you want to call it, since 2020, it's just kind of the way that 2020 was. There's actually a lot of opportunity for those looking to get into games right now and looking to study in games. And you have things like the Transfuser Fund, which is part of UK Games Fund. So Transfuser Fund is £7,500 if you get it to work on your game. It's government backed. It's a fund. It's completely free. You have to pay it back. And you also get things like additional mentorship, right? That's for graduates. So do you have a local hub near you? Or for our students, currently we're running it as a local hub. That's an opportunity for you to build in a way that I said that I feel bad that students don't have the same access to the maintenance grant and things like that. Now, this is almost that equivalent. If you win that, or even if you don't win that, even if you didn't go to university whatsoever, UK Gamers Fund, the bigger one, there's two of these. You can get funded up to £30,000 if you're a limited company and you have something like 3 people.
Yeah.
That's for a game of your design, an IP of your design. There's quite a few of these grants that are given out per year. If you're an ideas person, apply for it. And you should just apply for it every year, habitually, and take the feedback and send them back. If you're not, and you just want to work on something, apply to the winners.
Yeah.
Try and find the winners and apply to them, because that money, both Transfuser and UK Games Fund, has to be spent on people. I could be wrong about Transfuser. Actually, I think it might have to also pay for their ticket. But UK Games definitely has to be spent on people. So apply to it. I want this kind of surge of youthful talent in the UK games industry to go through how incredible these two lifelines are. These are government backgrounds, and they've been government-backed grants. There we go, got there eventually. And they've been growing. I think we're up to 5 million now per year or something like that. I'm going to fumble the stats. Big numbers, and the government knows it's big. Boris knew it was big when he was Prime Minister. Keir knows it now. They're continuously putting more money into this. Now is a very interesting time to be in games and esports. And if you're interested about anything I've said, feel free to reach out. I have a publicly accessible public email. And if you've made it to the end of this episode, I would recommend that you use it to ask me just about any questions that you might have regarding being.
Yeah, I can put all your details in the description so people can reach out.
No, leave it like a hurdle they need to jump. If they've made it this far, it's a little reward if you made it to the end of the episode.
Instead of just scrolling down and just...
No, and stuff.
Yeah, so no, that was really good way to finish that. And it's like, yeah, for those that want to get the real insider knowledge and getting the grants and stuff, they kind of need to watch the whole video. So yeah, no, thanks for that. And yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And yeah, it was interesting that you had to go back and speak to your parents and really delve into the whole aspect of working class and delving back into that.
Yeah, maybe I could. There's not one last question, and I know we're out of time.
No,
it's
the
shortest thing
fine.
ever. I didn't know why, because I thought there might be a question about how working class loves and music and creativity kind of go together, and I guess I didn't necessarily understand why my dad started playing music, because I didn't think his dad was a musician. Turns out he was, in a weird way. He made a what are they called? I had a T-chest bass. A T-chest bass is like a box with like a copper pipe and with some string of whatever. And yeah, you're like playing the bass with like a single string. And my dad said the reason he even started playing bass in the first place, the reason that I'm here today, is ultimately because my granddad, who came from London, made like weird London music with this like T-chest bass with his hands. You know, this is an instrument. He didn't buy it. He made this thing with his hand and a bit of copper pipe and things like that. And so I went from starting this conversation kind of thinking there was no link to just like, no, not only is there a link, there's a direct link because, you know, I'm here today because my granddad decided he wanted to stick a bit of copper pipe into a bit of wood. You know, it's wild. It's wonderful. And yeah, thank you for allowing me to explore it. Thank you for giving me a reason to phone my parents and have a really long conversation with them about this. And yeah, I'm really interested to hear what other people make of these questions and how wonderful and unique all the answers are going to be. And I'm looking forward to hearing every single one of them.
No, and yeah, thank you for sharing your story. Much appreciated.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Initial Step. If you resonate with the stories we share and have a similar background you'd like to talk about, we'd love to hear from you. Get in touch and maybe you'll be featured in an upcoming episode. And don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Be sure to check out our previous episodes for more inspiring stories. Until next time, we'll see you in the next one.